to the entertaining Talking Sports.
What is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. And in this video, I'm going to talk about the list that came out today from PFF grading the top 100 free agencies in this year's class. And as I always say, PFF is just a tool. It's not something that I look at as the be-all, end-all, but I think it's a good starting point as to get a grasp of the guys that the New York Giants and teams in general are going to be looking at come free agency in March. And free agency is only about 2 months away, so it's going to come quick. And I'm going to try to do a video at least once every other day regarding free agency. I've already started. I did a video yesterday on the backup quarterback rankings in terms of, trying to find Daniel Jones' replacement there, as well as one on potential Patriot free agents that the New York Giants will be looking at. I'll have a more in-depth video breaking down individual positions and guys where I would rank them and how much I think they'll cost on the open market, things like that. But in this video, I just wanted to go over the list and kind of get an outline of where these guys rank according to PFF and some names that I think the New York Giants should and probably will be attracted to. So let's jump right into it. Let's go over the list, and let's go over some of the names that I pointed out. At the end, I'll scan through the bottom 50 and point out some guys that I think the Giants could be interested in as well in terms of value. First guy we're going to talk about is Amari Cooper. I had to go over the number one name on the list. I'm not going to read everything for each guy. That would take way too long, but Cooper is a guy that a lot of people thought, mid-season was going to stay with the Dallas Cowboys, and now there's rumors that are starting to circulate that may not be the case, that the Cowboys may not keep Amari Cooper. We're going to have to wait and see. He's going to cost a ton. If the Giants were to sign Amari Cooper, well, then you wouldn't have to worry about wide receiver for quite some time with a young Darius Slayton. You'd be paying Cooper an arm and a leg. You're talking $19-20 million a year on a 5-year contract. That's what it's going to cost. He's one of the elite route runners in the NFL. And that's what this goes on to say. He graded out, I think, as 84.1 this year, according to PFF. He caught a career-high 503 yards on deep passes, 20-plus yards passes, and had the third highest mark in the league as he caught 62.5% of the deep passes that were thrown his way, which tied for fifth. And obviously the Cowboys' offense, which I'm sure it states, jumped to much higher when he joined the roster, and he certainly would allow the Giants to spread out the offense. Is it a guy I think the Giants will sign? No. I wanted to bring him up, though, just because he's a slight possibility, and he ranked number one on the list. Next guy we're going to go over is Byron Jones. He's a name, another Cowboy, by the way. He's a name I've seen a lot of my subscribers mention because he's the number one corner in this year's class, and he very well may be. The one thing I've noticed about Jones, on a lot of things I've read, he played good this year, but he certainly was not as good as 2018. Chris Richard was credited greatly with shifting him from safety to corner. He's a former first-round pick, and in 2018, the Cowboys got the most out of him. But he's hitting the open market at the right time. The cornerback position is very thin in this year's class, and he, by most people's standards, ranks as the top guy in the class. Another guy I failed to mention, I didn't pull up besides, is McCourty. He ranked around 30, but I'm going to put the link in the description below if you guys want to check out the entire list. But McCourty ranked around 30. It's another guy that I may be interested on a short-term contract. Byron Jones is going to command a long-term contract. He's going to be 5 years, 4 or 5 years at least. I personally would stay away. I'm going to go over a guy that's ranked a little lower that I think you could get on a shorter-term deal, which is what I think the New York Giants' primary objective should be in this year's free agency class. I don't want to make the same mistake we did in 2016 where we signed 3 guys to 5-year contracts, because that's going to do is it's going to eat into your cap space in the coming years when you look to extend players like Barkley and Jones. I'd rather spread out the cap space. If you want to sign one big guy, go ahead, right? And we're going to go over, all the big names, where they ranked. But I don't want to be spending it on 3 big guys, and Byron Jones would not be one of the big guys I personally would want to spend it on. Corey Littleton might be one of those guys. I'm going to get into Corey Littleton's a 3-4 middle linebacker. He is strictly a 3-4 middle linebacker, but he's a player I love. I did my first free agency video on him a couple of months ago. Phenomenal in coverage. Was a special teams player for the beginning of his career, and something that Joe Judge will probably like based on the fact that he comes from a special teams background. Littleton worked hard. He moved himself up the charts, became a starter last year, and really took off. This year, he played on another level. As it says, he had a 90.6 coverage grade, which is ridiculous for a linebacker. That's what he's known for. Now, it does point out his run grade is not good. He ranked 103 out of 126, and he's not a 4-3 linebacker. So he is not going to bring that versatility, per se, that Joe Judge wants to bring. But you could drop him back and possibly in the secondary in certain packages. He's very good in coverage, and I've seen a number of Ram games this year on primetime, and he stands out in every one of them. Player I really like, but again, he's going to get 5 years. He's going to get 4 or 5 years based on his age and talent. Anthony Castonzo is an interesting name that I think a lot of people are not talking about. They graded him number 10, and it's because of his age. He's going to be, I think, 33. He's either going to be 32 or 33. It says 32 at the end. Really good tackle, and he's been consistent throughout his entire career, as it shows. 77 to 83 in their grading system since 2012. Is a part of that Colts offensive line, which ranks in the top of the league. The question is he going to be available? Are the Colts going to retain him? Would I sign him on a 2-year deal? 100%. Would I sign him on a 3-year deal with the ability to cut him after 2 and not take much of a cap hit? Probably. You could put him at the left tackle. You could switch Solder to the right for 1 year, draft your tackle, and plug him in the following year when you get rid of Solder. That could be an option that they take. Castonzo is a veteran that's still not too up there in age, and maybe you get 2 or 3 really good years out of him. But a long-term contract, absolutely not. But a guy on a short-term deal, if he becomes available, that maybe the Giants do have interest in, you're going to have to pay him, though. Much like we had to pay Solder, offensive linemen do not come cheap as free agents. Justin Simmons, another guy a lot of my subscribers are starting to point out. Simmons this year was off the charts. The one issue I have with Simmons, he's kind of like a Shaquille Barrett, where he had a breakout year before his contract season. And when you look at some of the things he was able to do here, really impressive stuff, but what he did in the past does not compare. So that is the one thing I worry about, but definitely young. He's 26. He's going to be a 4 or 5 year guy. If you're going to sign a guy in the secondary, this may be a guy I look at because of his age. Again, he's going to cost a lot of money, though. He's going to cost Landon Collins type money. But this is what they had to say about him. Simmons had a breakout 2019 season, grading at 91 overall, earning a PFF first-team All-Pro honor. The only thing keeping Simmons from being even higher on the list is a multiple-year sample. Exactly what I just said. He graded between 60.9 and 75.3 the previous 3 seasons. And the biggest place where Simmons improved has been at the cash point, where he broke up 11 passes in 2019 after breaking up just 3 in his first 3 years combined in the league. So his first 3 years, he broke up 1 per season. This year, he broke up 11. So a dramatic improvement in his contract season. And I think he's a former 3rd-round pick. But certainly a guy that the New York Giants could take a good, hard, strong look at, who would help that secondary. Obviously, we have probably right now you're looking at Love as one of the starters alongside Peppers. You could always transfer Love to the slot. That's a guy that the Giants could potentially be interested in. Conklin, obviously a huge name we always talk about. Conklin was an all-pro tackle his first or second year in the league. We all know he suffered the ACL tear. But one thing that's very encouraging, Jack Conklin got progressively better over the course of the season and was a leading force in Derrick Henry, taking off as the league-leading runner. If you look at Derrick Henry's splits, the first half of the season to the second half of the season, it's night and day, even before the playoffs. And Conklin probably has a lot to do with that. They said his PFF grade for the year was 78. I remember looking at his PFF grade mid-season, it was 70. So he had a much stronger second half, according to PFF. His run blocking grade was 81, and a lot of my subscribers have pointed out that ACL tears take 2 years to recover, so maybe towards the end of that season, he was starting to get back to form, and Conklin is a guy that will, because of his age, definitely command 5 years, but again, could be retained by Tennessee. Shaquille Barrett, much like Simmons, a guy that gave you one phenomenal year. He had like 19, 20 sacks, whatever it was. He was incredible. But the one thing I worry about with Shaq Barrett is it was 1 year. Yes, he was kind of planted behind Chubb his last year with the Denver Broncos, obviously having Von Miller there as well. But Barrett did have opportunities in the prior years. And he was always decent, 4 or 5 sacks, but never anything like this. It's a player that you're going to gamble if you sign him. He's still young. I think it's his 5th year in the league. But he had one ridiculous year, but has not been consistent throughout his career. So that's the one thing I worry about with Barrett. But certainly a guy that's going to get paid. Will the Giants be one of those teams? We'll have to wait and see. But he's going to get a 5-year deal worth over $100 million, I think. Next guy up, Yannick Ngakoue. Plays the same position. Kind of the opposite to Barrett. A guy that's been consistent throughout his career. 8 and 12 sacks. Always between that throughout his whole career. Never had a big season like Barrett did this year with the 20 sacks. But always going to get after the quarterback. Another strength that they don't mention here of Ngakoue. Really good at forcing fumbles. He's known for that, much like an OCU Manure was. I think he's actually very similar to OCU Manure. He's not that good against the run. He's not known to be good against the run, which is what they point out. So he's not a complete player, but he's a very good pass rusher, situational pass rusher, and could create some turnovers. So maybe a guy you want to look at, definitely could command some double teams, make it easier for guys like Lorenzo Carter, and he is just 25 years old, so he's still improving. So that is a guy that the Giants may take a look at. Obviously, he's hinted that he wants to be a Giant. Kyle Van Noy, just wanted to pull him up because I mentioned him in a previous video. A versatile player, really took off with the Patriots, didn't do much with Detroit, which is what they mentioned. Had a good year, though. 8 sacks, 9 QB hits, and 43 hurries, even though I don't think that's necessarily correct because I thought he had 6.5 sacks. But he had a good year with the Patriots, nevertheless, and he will get paid. Now, he's probably only going to command 3 years, I would guess, as opposed to 5. Maybe the Giants look at him if it's an affordable contract. And then I wanted to pull up Joe Schobert. Joe Schobert has played pretty much exclusively out of the 4-3 his entire career. He's known better in terms of coverage, so he could probably translate to the 3-4. No problems. I think he could. And he's not going to cost you as much as a Littleton. So we'll see. I think he's a former Pro Bowler. But, according to PFF, he did regress a bit this year. So we'll see how he does, on the open market, and we'll see if the Giants are interested in him as well. Those were some of the names in the top 50 I wanted to point out. I don't think you're looking at multiple guys in that list. Maybe 1, maybe 2. We'll see what the Giants decide to do with that cap space. And then in the terms of the bottom 50, Bud Dupree, name that pops right off at 52. He's an edge rusher who had a great year with the Steelers, but from everything I've read, the Steelers plan on keeping him. Bradbury's a name you want to keep an eye on. He is obviously a former Gettleman guy with the Carolina Panthers. Really took off there, played very well early on in his career. You'd get him for a much more affordable rate than that of a Byron Jones, maybe on a 2 or 3 year deal. So that's a guy maybe the Giants have some interest in. So I wanted to point him out. Von Bell's a safety, who's could be a guy we look at. Dante Fowler, he's ranked low probably because of his he's been inconsistent his entire career outside of this year, where he had 12.5 sacks. But keep in mind, he played on the same line as Aaron Donald. That probably certainly helped him. But could be a guy depending on the contract. But I think he's going to get paid based off of this year's production. And then, Shaq Lawson's a former early first-round pick. Maybe you look at. He's not going to get paid much, in my opinion. He hasn't been great. And then Judon. He's ranked low probably, once again, because of lack of production throughout his career. I personally think he should be higher. I'll talk more about him when I do my edge rushers from the Baltimore Ravens. Definitely a guy. I think he had double-digit sacks. Connor McGovern is definitely a guy we could look at the center position, something we need. Depending on the contract, he'll probably get something similar to what a Mitch Morse got because of positional scarcity. There's not a lot of really good centers out on the open market, and he's going to get paid, and it is a position of need. So you're probably looking at about $11 million a year for a 4-year contract if you were to sign a guy like that, if I had to guess. Jonathan Joseph, another veteran corner. Devin Funchess, I think he's a tall wide receiver, if I'm not mistaken, that they could look at. And yeah, Danny Trevathan, veteran linebacker. Those are some of the names. And then Philip Dorsett rounded it out, who I actually previously mentioned in the Patriots video, who could be here. We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, he was formerly coached by Joe Judge at the wide receiver position. So those are some of the names. I'm going to put the link in the description below. You guys could check out the list. I just want to do a rundown of it, do a brief breakdown of some of the guys on the list, some of the guys I think the New York Giants could potentially be interested in as I continue my offseason free agency coverage. Thank you guys for watching. As always, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe, drop a comment, maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.